with that, I guess it wasn't a bad thing. It was a good thing. It's cool outside. It's good to be here with you all, and thank you all for showing up, taking out a part of your day to be here with us. I'll call the September Stormwater Management Commission meeting to order. We were waiting on one more commission member to show, but we've got a quorum, so we'll kick things off with our regularly scheduled order of items, which the first is always to review and discuss, approve, amend our meeting minutes and decision letters from our last meeting. So I'll take a motion from whomever, combined typically. Once we're ready, we receive those items before the meeting, and so. We might start a GoFundMe account for new iPads so we can see them in person. Is that what we need to do, Logan? If the finance department's watching, maybe they can contribute to that fund. Sorry, I should clarify. Thank you. We have new mics, so anyone who's here who will be speaking will press the speak button. It'll turn green. I'll have to then hit a button on my side now to allow you to speak, so I can cut you off if I need to. Yeah. Great.
And decision letters? Yep.
Oh my God.
You're
Okay.
busy today.
Okay. You can speak now.
Second.
We have a motion that's been made and properly seconded. Any more discussion? Great. All in favor, press your button and I'll allow you to speak. Hang on. It's good practice. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none. Any abstained? Seeing none. Motion carries. Okay, that was good practice, guys. All right, moving on. First case on the agenda today, 3240 Limestone Road. I'll ask the applicant to come to the podium here, or to the desk here, and Logan, I think the mic situation is going to be is it the same? Oh, okay.
Kabir.
Yes.
I think their mics are different. I don't think you have to request theirs on. I think they automatically.
Hello?
Yeah. Okay.
So I can't cut them off?
I mean, you can go over there and take the mic.
Okay, that's fine. All right.
Do you want me to be the person running that? It's because you're going to be kind of more focused on.
I like to be in control.
Okay.
We'll try it. Okay, so
Therapy.
it's therapy for me. Yes, you can speak.
Okay, but before we start, I do need to disclose, when, in my former life, when I was external counsel, I actually represented RL Trucking, on a decent amount of matters. It's probably been about 7 years. Nothing from them being a former client of mine would affect my ability to rule on this. Nothing that I learned through attorney-client privilege would also affect my overall ruling, but I did want to go ahead and disclose that.
Thank you. Okay. All right, with that, I'll let Logan introduce the case, and then I'll give you a rundown of how things will go. All right.
If you are not satisfied with a decision made by the Stormwater Management Commission, you may appeal the decision by filing for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the Commission's decision. You are advised to seek the independent advice of legal counsel to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been satisfied. Case number 1 on the agenda, case 2025-00014, 3240 Franklin Limestone Road, preliminary at 3240 Franklin Limestone Road. APN is 148-000-18100. Inspector is NPDES. Council District 28, David Benson. Applicant's request, floodway encroachment, floodway buffer encroachment, Zone 1 and Zone 2, 12,562 cubic yards of uncompensated fill in the floodplain, continuous mowing and maintenance of portions of the floodway buffer, modification of buffer signage location. Appellant is Roberts Development Group, represented by Kimley Horn. Comments, Stormwater staff. This project proposes construction of office space and a truck wash facility within the floodway buffer of Mill Creek. Expanded employee parking is proposed within the floodway of Mill Creek. Applicant is requesting 12,562 cubic yards of uncompensated fill within the floodplain, which is proposed to cause a 0.04 foot rise in the base flood elevation. Metro Water Services requests that the amount of uncompensated fill is reduced. The site achieves a no-rise analysis and works with staff as necessary on a mitigation planting plan. Codes, no comment provided. Planning, no comment provided. Greenways, the plan to play, Parks Master Plan identifies a greenway route along Mill Creek across the subject property. Greenways defers to the decision of the Stormwater Management Commission.
Great, so I'll give you a little rundown of how this will take place. I'll let you all have 10 minutes to present your case. I'll ask that you introduce yourselves first, and then we'll close the presentation, open it up for public comment. If there's anybody here to speak in favor of or against, I'll ask them to come to the podium and provide them 2 minutes to provide their statement, and then we'll close public hearing and open it up for the commissioners to deliberate, and we may have some back and forth for you, and we'll come to a resolution. Any questions?
We're actually not going to be voting on this item, I believe. Is that right, Logan? It's just a preliminary discussion.
This preliminary? Okay, great. Okay, thanks for clarification. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to you and let you introduce yourself.
Very well. Good morning. My name is Mary McGowan, and this is...
I'm JPF Earth.
We're with Kimley Horn, representing R+L here in Nashville. R+L has owned the property since 2009. And so again, this is a preliminary review. Really kind of want some discussion and some feedback. This is a bit of a complicated site. So if I can get, there we go. So the site was developed in the 1980s, and since the development and purchase by our client, later on, the site needs additional items to be in line with the operational standards of today's time. The proposed changes are adding additional truck bays, relocating a maintenance building and truck wash to be out of the floodway, adding additional employee parking. And the additional employee parking is mainly for during the shift change, because there's 3 different shifts, and so it's during that overlap that they're looking for the additional parking. So you'll see in the coming slides the existing conditions of the site relative to the floodplain and floodway. The site constraints are what is leading towards these variance requests. The requests include floodway and buffer encroachments, uncompensated fill, mowing of portions of the buffer, buffer signage location. So I'm going to try and go through these pretty quickly since there's so many of them. So in addition to the variance request, we are proposing a reduction in impervious area. So we are reducing the impervious area by 1.04 acres to the site. We're also proposing some substantial landscaping to try and offset some of the variances that we're requesting. So additional canopy trees, understory trees, shrubs, et cetera, and I will point out that as we go. So this is the site as it sits today. It's bound by Mill Creek, the railroad right-of-way, and Franklin Limestone. The site in its entirety is located within the floodplain and/or the floodway. So you'll see in the FEMA map here. So the site is all within the 100-year floodplain and portions are within the floodway. The orange in the middle is an existing building. So I'm going, for all the future slides, everything's gonna be kind of rotated counterclockwise. So you'll see the floodway is gonna be on the plan north, and the floodplain is gonna be on the plan south. So this is the site plan proposed, and I have another slide later on that has the existing and the proposed side by side, so you can kind of see where the encroachments are located. So they did evaluate alternative site plans for this site. The issue that came into place is that wherever they placed additional buildings, whether it was in this location or somewhere else, we created a uncompensated fill. And that's mainly because we had to bring those buildings up to be above the base flood elevation. And so we were having trouble mitigating for that floodplain somewhere else. And given the location of the floodway on the site being basically half the site, where to mitigate it was really complicated based on what's allowed to be done in the floodway from walls and structures and so forth. So the existing buildings today don't meet the elevation requirements, and so any changes to the site would require uncompensated fill. So this one shows the existing conditions today. So the area shaded in gray is what is being proposed to be the limits of disturbance for the property. The pink is the zone 1 buffer, the purple is the zone 2 buffer, and just everything north, plan north is floodway, everything plan south is floodplain. So the green shown in here is the existing pervious within the limits of disturbance today. So if we go to the proposed, the green is now the proposed pervious. So reducing it, that's where that 1 acre comes from that we're adding into it. So this is the comparison of the two, the existing and the proposed. The top is the existing and the bottom is the proposed. So the red that you see in the top and the bottom is the proposed structures or buildings within the floodway or floodway buffers. So the existing today is 8,504 square feet of building encroachments into the floodway and floodway buffers. With the proposed development, we will be removing any buildings from being within the floodway. So that 1 building to the north that is in the floodway is going to be removed. There are still going to be small encroachments, one pretty much where 1 is now, and then also a small corner. And so that equates to 2,145 square feet of building encroachments into the buffers only. In addition to the structures, the existing impervious area on site encroaching to the buffers today is 13.46 acres. The encroachment post-development is 12.63 acres. So it's not that entire 1 acre didn't come out of the floodway and buffer, it's the whole site, but it was a large reduction in the floodway. So also in the bottom, you can see the proposed mitigation, which is kind of like a triangle on the plan east side, and then there's just some other small sliver on the plan north side. And so these are the areas where we were planning on that enhanced landscaping. So this just also highlights that a little bit more. One of the variance requests is the ability to mow, and that's basically requesting to mow where we're currently mowing for the last 30 years. But these areas could be identified as areas not to be mowed. I mean, they're going to be heavily planted. Also, one of the variance requests is to the placement of the buffer signage. Since the buffers are basically all hardscape today, it's kind of tricky on where to put them. So we would recommend them maybe moving those signs here or some sort of signage. So to talk about the floodplain analysis, so as part of the application, we did a HECRES model for the proposed uncompensated fill. It did result in a no rise of the floodway. There was a slight rise of the less than 1/2 inch for the floodplain, and that's in that middle section of the plan. If the variance request is approved, then the owner will be seeking a clomer with FEMA for the small change, along with all of the notifications for property owners, and will then ultimately result in a LOMR post-construction. So we did evaluate additional mitigation for the uncompensated fill and to study it within the floodplain. And just given the location of the floodway and the floodplain on the site, putting the mitigation on the floodplain side did not really help, or it did not help the rise. And so in order to reduce the rise, that additional mitigation would need to be in the floodway. And so additional disturbance of the floodway today. And so that's kind of where we are right now. We do appreciate your time and consideration on this matter. Anything else to add? Okay. So I'm just going to go back to the slide where it's comparing the existing to the proposed, because I have a feeling that's what we'll be talking about a lot.
Yeah, and you've got about two minutes, a little over 2 minutes.
We'll
So go ahead and use it if you'd like.
Oh, go ahead and use it. I was just going to keep it. I think I'm good.
Okay.
So-
Okay. Great. Anything else? Okay. Awesome. All right. Close presentation, and then open it up for public comment. If you're here to speak in favor or against, could you please raise your hand? Okay.
I just have a question about, and
If you don't mind, state your name, address, and I'll give you.
I live at 4546
Oh.
Artelia Drive, which is adjacent to the property, I believe. I received a notice about this. And my question is one of probably ignorance, but I'm just trying to find out what's happening over there, because daily my house rocks from explosions. I have in my kitchen pots that hang from a rack in the ceiling, and they bang together. I have cracks developing in my stairwell way to my basement. And daily, it's like I'm a veteran and I spent time in the Middle East, and so it's almost reminiscent of the dust storms I used to watch when I was stationed there. These dust clouds that are just covering everything, the cars, the window sills. What's going on, and how long is this going to last, is my question. And I know it doesn't relate to floodway, but this was my only thought of how can I get some information. So.
I appreciate you being here, and thank you for your service. I'm sorry it brings up some of those older memories, but I think that might be from a different project. This one has not started yet. I think there's go ahead if you.
Vulcan has a quarry right down the road.
Yeah.
That's probably it.
Okay. There's a rock quarry, and I'm assuming they're blasting for that material, and that's unfortunately a different scenario than what we're dealing with here today.
I thought it was related to the quarry, but I got this, and so I thought, well, maybe it's the quarry people that'll be here, and obviously it's not. So I'm in the wrong space, but I figured it was worth a try.
No, I appreciate you being here. It sounds like there may be some air pollution compliance issues, so feel free to go down those channels. I'm sorry we can't help you here in this,
Sorry to waste your
forum.
time.
No. Good to hear that feedback. So. Yes. Oh, sorry. I have to do that.
I'm happy to speak to the gentleman after the case is over, maybe give him some ideas of who he can talk to within the various government departments on those things.
That'd be great, Mr. Hunt. Thank you. Okay. All right. Anybody else? Yes, please. And if you don't mind, come to the mic and add name and address, and I'll give you 2 minutes to speak.
Good morning. My name is Patricia Rocha. The address is 106 Cherokee Hills Drive. Just a couple of questions. Same as the gentleman, I didn't know what this was about. We just received the letter. But looking and hearing what you're all talking about, it's got something to do with the creek and the drain. The creek hasn't been clean since the flood in 2010. I've been living there since 2002, so I noticed that. And how is this going to affect? Because between Franklin, Limestone, and Antioch in our streets, there's a lot of back and forth with trucks, and they've been leaving gravel and materials, and sometimes the waste managed company clean the area, but not all the time. So I don't know how to approach that or to who to speak with, because also we have the issue with the shaking. It's almost around 12 o'clock because I work from home, and it's getting worse than it was. 11:15 and 12, yes. And it's getting worse. It wasn't like this 20 years ago. And it's getting more constant, and I don't know if, I haven't noticed any damage in the house. But I don't know. I don't know who to contact to check it, and who can be held responsible for all those damage. I don't know. And then also when it rains a lot and the creek flows, we can't travel along Franklin Limestone because it's kind of dangerous. It's not the creek overflowing, but it rises up to the level that sometimes they have to close the streets, right? I don't know, but yeah, it's an issue.
It's very, yes, I appreciate those comments and for you to take your time out of your day to be here. Similar to Mr. Samuel's situation, those pieces are related to, it seems, the quarry. There are blasting vibration limits that they are to stay within, and some other pieces that maybe staff can help you learn how or who to contact to help address those issues.
And in regards of the creek, is anybody planning to clean all that mess was left from the 2010
Saying
flooding?
it would be something we need to bring up with Metro Water Services and staff. Prashant, do you have anything to add to that? Oh, sorry, I got to do that.
Same as the previous gentleman. If you'll wait around until after the case, I'll get your information and see how we can
Will
help
do
you.
that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anybody else here to speak? Okay. Logan, did we receive any letters, emails, threats? Oh, I got to do that to you too. Okay.
Yes, there is a letter. It's from a Jimmy McCullough. It's printed out. That would be from the site across Mill Creek from this. Just saying they're in opposition to the variance.
Okay.
I got a few calls too, I guess, from folks in the area, just asking what was going on.
Okay. Okay. All right, we've received that letter from Mr. McCullough. Great, I'll close public hearing and open it up for discussion. I'll start by saying I appreciate the applicant coming to us in a preliminary format to give feedback versus coming to us with a full-blown packet here. Most of these improvements are within areas that we typically do not allow for this type of development, but I do appreciate your attempt to provide a case that shows that it's an existing condition, you're working to improve that existing condition, and you've done a good job in demonstrating a case that is difficult to get through this commission, as I think, as you know. So I appreciate your approach on that, is what I wanted to state. With that, is there any discussion? I know, we don't allow for, go ahead. Yes, I'm sorry. I need to have better peripheral vision as well, or, yeah.
This is
please.
Can you elaborate? You mentioned, and I'm sorry if I got this wrong, you mentioned the mitigation when you guys were looking at the no-rise, placing that in the floodplain didn't show a difference, but putting it in the floodway. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on that
And don't forget
analysis?
to press your mic button there as well. Yep, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, there it does start. So,
I think your mic's off. Should have a,
can you hear me?
oh, there you go. Okay. There used to be a
I'll
light.
get closer. I'm a quiet person anyways. So because, here is our buffer, putting locations here, we looked at putting it here. And it just because of the location of putting it here, relative. It didn't make an impact to this cross-section. So it would really need to be more on this side to impact this cross-section, which is the one that's a challenge. Does that make sense? Okay.
Hang on. Okay, gotcha.
Roger, is this part of the, is this a tributary that's anticipated to increase with all the new studies? And I know Mill Creek historically was really, really bad flooding wise.
This is the main stem of Mill Creek, and so it's been modeled. It's not undergoing any additional modeling at this point, and I don't anticipate anything going forward. I mean, the modeling, the active modeling is on the Cumberland River itself, so.
Yeah, and, general parameters, no construction within the flood or the Zone 1 buffer, on a case-by-case basis in a Zone 2, as you know, no rise. I appreciate you trying to find a way to do that. Was there any opportunity for any off-site? I know across the creek is probably a different parcel owner.
That's right.
And there's no opportunity there to compensate.
Not that we have found
Yeah.
at this time. Mhm.
I mean, get you, hang on, sorry. Okay.
I kind of, the offsetting fill is one item, then the floodway stuff is another. I'm wondering, not sure if we can get past the floodway stuff, which would make the uncompensated fill, kind of a moot point, but do you have to build up that whole area, or could you just put some steps up to the building? Because it seems like there's a ton of fill just trying to bring the grade up to the finished floor.
Do you want to answer that?
So the trucks, there's a 4-foot difference between where the top of pavement is and the finished floor elevation.
Right.
So the trucks need to be able to have that elevation difference to enter the building. In the terms of the truck court, stairs wouldn't be an option.
Oh, so those are all, trucks drive through the wing on the right side?
Yes. So see that the
And your
long,
client's shaking his head no.
Stan, would you
Yeah,
like?
you're welcome down.
This is
Yeah.
Stan Richards with R&L Carriers.
Great, thank you.
And Stan will have to
for being
press the
here.
button.
Stan Richards with R&L Carriers, Vice President, Wilmington, Ohio. Thank you for this opportunity. So there are no drive-through bays except for the very right side in the dark gray. Yep, that would be where we relocate, demo the existing maintenance shop, and bring that to the backside there. On the left side, all the bays that you see are where the trailers back up to the dock and unload. It's about a 48-inch elevation where those trucks back in.
So they are all drive-in on the right side then? Yeah, those are, it's a whole bay of drive-in maintenance.
On the right-hand side,
Okay,
yes.
gotcha.
I guess the other, go ahead, Fiona, sorry. You're recognized. Yeah.
Did I hear correctly that the floodway was for additional employee parking and that was due to shift change? And that just questioning whether or not, if it's just for that, operationally, how that could be achieved without impacting having to add additional parking for that, just the small part of the day where they overlap.
And I was going to ask about that as well, if you could point out where that parking is, if it's additional or it's just already existing.
So it's right here. And so you can see now that area has kind of been used for trucks. And so that would now be a parking lot instead. And then this one here is modified to make it more efficient from a parking standpoint. So this little piece here.
Are those increased, or those are just modifications to,
Those are just
pervious?
modifications.
Okay.
Is it permissible to modify that parking area that's outside of the floodway and outside of the buffers, but within the floodplain to add storage through anything, through a pervious system with storage, or is that something staff was opposed to providing? Mr. Hunt, I see you thinking.
It would just go into.
Oh, okay, go for it.
It would go into the overall plan review, whether the material was pervious, if it was fill, how it played into the cut and fill balance. So that would all be considered as a part of the engineering plan review. So as long as it met our current regs, it would be okay. If there was some conflict with that, then it would have to be included as part of the variance.
Yeah, I've seen trucking facilities with pervious paver systems and creating storage, and, you know, there's a way to do that. You'd have to remove some of your existing.
It's hard to do in floodplain.
Yeah.
They'll rupture.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
as a reminder, LID is not conducive to floodplain area because surcharging during flood.
Yeah.
That's right, that's waiver number 2. So
Yeah.
someone else can deal with that.
So we're floodplain all the way across. It's all 100 year. Yeah.
So one thing that we could look at doing is taking this proposed parking here that's in the floodway and try to shift it over here. We could look at that and come back to you guys with that option. We want to keep this access point where it is. We don't want to change that, but we could look at maybe moving some of this parking on this side.
Oh. Oh, gosh, I'm behind on, okay.
Can you talk through what the current condition is of the wedge down in the bottom right? Or the triangle in the bottom right?
That we're proposing to,
Well, I guess I'm curious what it is today, and then obviously you're planning to plant something back there. I don't know what the blue is shown in there, but I guess the difference today and then what you're going back with you were describing that as part of your mitigation. Can you just talk through the pre and post condition of that?
Yeah, if you'll flip to the aerial, probably easiest to see there.
It looks to be somewhat vegetated now, I guess, or
Current condition is sandy with weeds, sandy with minimal vegetation. So it would be an improved, like native seed grass, trees and shrubs, enhanced landscape area. But natively right now, it's sandy soil and almost bare.
I think one aside, you mentioned the mowing and maintenance of the buffer. I think I would work to eliminate that and try and find a solution, if anything did go through, that at least took that out of it, whatever your mitigation and landscape strategy was, something that didn't require that kind of approach to it, given that it is almost either entirely in the floodway or floodplain, certainly.
yeah, I think up here, it's pretty easy to not mow any of that area. It's more or less like, well, if we change this area here, but it was kind of more of in these types of areas right next to the roads that we were proposing to mow. But I think that, like you're saying, those other areas, we could definitely look at not mowing those.
Brittany, please, yes. Oh, sorry, Nathan, did you have anything else? Okay.
I will say, I do this is a very difficult site. I do appreciate the idea of moving some of the parking that you all are currently proposing out of the floodway. I did notice that we had a comment from Greenways, and so I wanted to maybe hear from Greenways on the potential of anything on this property or what the master plan is showing.
Thank you for reminding us about that. That's always good to have our friends at Parks and Greenways here. Ms. Harrison, yes. You are recognized.
Okay, hi, Cindy Harrison, Metro Parks Greenways Division. Our master plan does call for a greenway along Mill Creek, and the likely location of that would be on the side in the future. Because of the existing conditions, there's really, at this point, without changing their existing facility, we wouldn't be able to install a greenway, but we just wanted to make note of that, particularly with any mitigation that might be done or something that would prevent us in the future of if changes happen to the site, of being able to install that greenway.
Okay. There's no trailhead that's within the distance that this isn't a near-term plan to connect, or?
There's a trailhead to the north at Ezel Park, and down to the south at Blue Hole Road in the south, the community center there.
Okay. Go ahead. The other one, I recognized.
It seems like you're protecting the buildings more, you're making an advancement there, but there's really no hardship for expanding this much, and converting, 5% of the site to landscape is a step in the right direction, but we're still just have relatively no improvement to the creek and to the buffers, and so that's, without any sort of hardship other than, you need more operation. I don't know what the compelling reason is to support it. I do appreciate that we're losing industrial land. I do appreciate that we need it, but our task is to, protect the streams and flooding, and, it doesn't seem like it's going in the right direction with all these improvements.
Yeah, I'll second that, but I do, like I said, appreciate them coming to us as a preliminary and trying to improve the site. Is there an opportunity to lower the addition on the right? I see on the screen here where you're building up that corner, and that's probably a significant portion of the uncompensated fill. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think what would be good for us to hear is, and Vice Chair Fulmer, you kind of led to this, is what is the biggest thing? Is it the encroachments into the buffers? Is it everything? Is it the uncompensated fill and rise? Because
I think I know it's a negligible rise, but I know there's a lot of flooding up and down Mill Creek fairly often. But the existing pavement and parking is almost at the top of bank. And so, we're a couple 100 feet into buffers with it. And so there's just no chance for any sort of benefit to the creek, being introduced here. I know you need to keep all that pavement, you need to park a lot of trailers, and that's an existing condition, but, you're greatly increasing your building size and your operation potential, but we're not really adding any sort of buffer to the creek. And so that's what makes it challenging. And then also in the future, I'm sure that the Greenways is going to want a way to get a path along it, but right now there's no room for it anywhere.
Yeah, if I can add on to that, I think looking at the plan and the amount of green that you've attempted to add to it, I think is a great start. But I think looking at the condition today, and as Mr. Fulmer said about the hardship, and then looking at what we're doing to improve the current condition with the request to do more, it doesn't seem to correlate, I guess, to the request and the improvements to the amount of impervious surface that is fully within the floodway and the floodway buffers, and ways that you can think creatively about reducing that and filtering it and adding more pervious, given that you are looking for a variance to do more when that can't really be done within the regulations. I think it has to be a different approach than what we're kind of seeing today.
Could I possibly speak to the hardship portion of it? Sure, please. So for the hardship, there's actually two mitigating factors here. Number one, of course, we all experienced the COVID era and what took place there. Even before COVID hit, the pandemic, we all saw and experienced that the brick and mortar stores were starting to fail. Our shopping centers were diminishing, and that created more freight to be delivered to homes. Today, it's widely understood and realized that with your Amazons and certainly our companies, all the freighting companies, there's a great increase of freight that gets delivered, which people are not going to the stores and shopping like they used to. That means that, especially the Nashville market and Metroplex area, is booming right now. Nobody can keep up with the freight. It's unbelievable. We're having to take, because we don't have the dock space that we're proposing to add, we're having to handle the freight 3 and 4 times to get it to the trailers because we don't have the space on the dock. So we're pulling trailers up, back and forth, 3 and 4 times, creates a safety issue. Certainly being productive with this, but there's safety, and the market actually demands that there has to be increase because nobody's shopping, they're wanting freight delivered. There's more freight coming through your city. So the hardship is there, in my opinion. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Unfortunately, economic components are not part of the hardships that we recognize as part of this body, but I do agree that we are under that type of growth and there's a need. So,
Yeah, these are the cases I always struggle with the existing, we already have an existing building and we're impervious surface in the floodway. I do agree with my fellow commissioners where I struggle a little bit is in these type of cases, when I have seen us move forward, there was usually a pretty significant improvement for the creek area or the floodway. And in this one, the fact that we have an increase in the flood rise, while it's slight, I just don't see some of the same aspects that we've seen in some of the other cases. It's hard for us, I think you'd have to get pretty creative on this site, and I appreciate what R&L, and I appreciate some of the financial hardship and the type of work that you guys do, but this is one where I don't know if we're really making it better from what I can tell with the current plan. Obviously, there is a slight reduction in the impervious in the floodway area, but I think as we all have acknowledged, I don't know if we're really doing much for the creek in that buffer area.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming before because this is a tough site, and I don't want to just repeat and echo what everybody said, but I know you need direction. We can't tell you what to do. I think the challenge for you all is going to be to summarize what I think, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but it has to be significant mitigation. There has to be, the no rise would need to be addressed. There would have to be an improvement, and I think that impact to the site from an operational standpoint may be inversely proportional, but that's going to have to be something you all weigh. And just to have that feedback, it needs to be much more significant than what we're seeing. If that's in summary?
Yeah, I think, obviously, it's a challenging site. It takes a creative approach to solve for the things that you're needing to solve for. And then I think, as Ms. Simpson said, we're just looking for the same creative approach in how you address the stormwater components, given the uniqueness of it, and how are you thinking creatively about how you're improving the condition of it, not just through the pieces that kind of come out of increasing the efficiencies of your site, which I think is kind of what the green space is kind of doing there, but how do you kind of think about it above that would say, okay, this is a creative solution that really is improving the conditions of it, that allows us to look at it through a better lens.
Yeah, I'll build on that a little. I mentioned it before, but pervious pavers outside of the buffers in the floodplain, it'll be the applicant's risk for that. I'm not sure how much the front side of your property gets flooded to where, the maintenance of those pervious pavers and that basin, the drainage basin that it would create would pose an issue. But if business is good and there's the economics work to rip up pavement and replace it with pervious and provide storage and additional capacity for this watershed, that would be one thing to consider in working with staff. I don't want to overstep my bounds, but I'm all for trying to create ways to improve sites that are, especially in these very sensitive areas. We heard some of the public come up and speak about issues with the creek, and if there's a way to improve the bank and restore some of those components. We haven't talked much about that, but you've got a pretty significant frontage along Mill Creek that could be a part of this project, and it could be a benefit as a whole to the folks up and downstream. So, is there anything from staff on that? Roger,
Yes.
Please.
Sorry, that was my
Mike,
thinking face, not this is difficult face.
Oh, okay, I thought that was you saying,
no.
oh man, I can't believe he's going there.
No. Absolutely not. I think if the site wants to contemplate some alternative strategies on the site, obviously if it's outside the floodplain, then pretty much they can design whatever they want. If it's within the floodplain, maybe they can work with staff on those type of practices which are somewhat less impacted by floodwaters. I think of water quality swales and some things like that maybe aren't so conducive to especially in a creek like this, the surcharging that you get subsurface based on horizontal pressures. But staff is obviously, through the ongoing meetings that we have with applicants, willing to discuss some of the alternative strategies, reconciling with what their business goals and project goals are, to see how they might come back with a better approach in the future.
On that, would staff consider any improvements to the creek itself?
I think
Yes, you're recognized.
I think generally speaking, any improvements that you want to make on your site could be contemplated as mitigation. The way we generally couch it with applicants is equal or greater offset to whatever impact that you're generating. So yeah, I think we would be willing to entertain most anything that you come up with. Just realize if you get much into the creek aspect of things, you bring TDEC and their ARAP permitting vehicle into play as well.
Yeah, I mean, I even wonder, have you looked at strategies? You've got a lot of flat roof up there that you're adding on. You look at green roof. Do you look at ways to retain some water on there and let it trickle out slower? I mean, I think there's different ways to approach really challenging sites like this that can be outside of just the norm of increasing some of the landscape areas. And then two, I think it would also be helpful to understand if you are increasing the pervious area as you are now, what is being captured and treated with that wasn't before, that's increasing. And I just see all that parking that's remaining, that is existing, and that it looks like the plan is to continue to use up in the top right. How can you improve the condition of that or the runoff of it? So I think there's just additional things that we'd like to see to understand how do you how do you address the requested hardship?
Yes. Recognize.
Two more quick elements. I think one thing you'd want to contemplate is when the site was originally built, what was the fill that was put in? That might come into play as far as engineering the controls in. In other words, was it good, clean fill that was used when the site was built? And then the other thing I would mention is we do see sites from time to time that do an offset. Maybe they're doing a project on one part of the site and they can't logistically do treatment, but then they can do it on another existing portion of the site to achieve treatment. So that might be something you'd contemplate as well.
I had a question. GIS shows a stream along the railroad. Do we know if that is a stream with a buffer, or is that? I know that tends to flag things that maybe not be, but.
I think it's just a swell associated with the railroad.
You're on.
Anything else?
Mr. Lewis, Captain Trey.
Just the one thing is that this is an existing site that's being used daily. And so what's happening is happening now. So anything that would be reduce the net or increase the net benefit or reduce the net erosion and stuff to the site would be a plus.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have to keep in mind that it is doing what it's doing now. So what can we do to, have lesser impact?
Right. I agree. Okay. Yes, please.
To echo Mr. Lewis, that was going to be my last card I was going to lay on the table for R&L carriers. If it's not approved, certainly we respect that and we understand that we've got guidelines with our company. We have to follow those as well. So we certainly understand that. But to his point, and what I was going to say is, we're operating right now, and there's not going to be an increase in traffic. If anything we do is better, wouldn't that be better?
Yeah, I think you're hearing a lot of that here today also. You've heard more, I think, I'm not saying support, but just we, as Ms. Simpson recognized earlier, that we treat existing sites a little bit differently in this committee, where if there's ways to improve its current condition as it impacts the watershed and the neighbors, we're always open to thinking with you to get to that point. And like I said, you've got I assume well over 1,000 feet of stream frontage. You've got a significant portion of existing pervious and significant portion of impervious and proposed impervious. There's ways to mitigate the runoff from those surfaces. You could be a great example of best stormwater management practices on this site if you really could put some of those pieces towards this expansion. Going about it in a conventional way to just expand building and concrete paving to the left and to the right is not really what we're looking for here on this site. It'd be something that helps, again, the watershed. So, any other feedback that you need from us? I know we're not going to take any votes on this. I think we've bounced around a lot of ideas.
We appreciate your time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for your approach. Okay. All right. Yes.
You already mentioned, but I really appreciate these types of presentations that are very clear on what the ask is, and we don't always get that as a commission, clarity as to what the request is and how it's presented. So I just wanted to say that out loud. Whenever we have a great example of a good presentation that gives us what we need to make a decision, I always like to acknowledge that. So we appreciate that.
All Very good. Good, folks, thanks. Hey, I'd like to, since we have a couple folks here from the community, and I want to make best use of their time, if, I know, Michael, you mentioned talking to them, so we'll pause for 5 minutes and take a quick break and reconvene shortly. I'm not used to, okay. That might be a problem. All right, next case on the agenda, folks, is the Charlotte Avenue, 5330 Charlotte Avenue. If the applicant can come to the desk here, I'll let Logan introduce the case while you're getting situated.
All right, case number 2 on the agenda is case 2025-00018, 5330 Charlotte Avenue, at 5330 Charlotte Avenue. APN is 09114-010-900. Inspector is NPDES, Council District 24, Brenda Gadd. Applicant's request, disturbance of the Zone 1 and Zone 2 floodway buffers, continuous mowing and maintenance of portions of the floodway buffer, educational buffer signage to be used instead of standard signage. Appellant is ECG Richland Creek LP, represented by Kimley Horn. Comments, Stormwater staff. This redevelopment project serves to mitigate certain existing legacy stormwater issues, to include raising FFE of existing buildings, removing buildings within the currently mapped floodway, reduction of impervious cover, etc. Applicants work with MWS staff to determine if a no-rise analysis is needed. Codes, no comment provided. Planning, no comment provided. Greenways, the plan to play. Parks master plan identifies a greenway route along Richland Creek across the subject property. Greenways defers to the decision of the Stormwater Management Commission.
Okay. It's not me, it's
Regular.
let's see.
Regular, not preliminary, just for.
Yeah, this is a final.
Okay, fine.
Thanks for clarifying. All right, applicant, you'll have 10 minutes to present. After you make your introductions, we'll close your presentation, open it up for public comment, and then deliberate. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning. So my name is John Richard Patterson. I'm with Kimley Horn, and this is Ned Bunsen with Elmington Capital Group, the owner. First, I'd like to thank Metro Water Services for working with us on this. We've been looking at the site for about 2 years now on what to do with it and how to make this work and beneficial to everybody, and so appreciate y'all's feedback on that. So as Logan mentioned, our variance requests are disturbance of the floodway, Zone 1, Zone 2 buffers, continuous mowing and maintenance of those portions of the floodway buffer that we're proposing to improve, and then alternative buffer signage and locations. As you can see on the screen right now, there's an existing shopping center that's roughly 113,000 plus square feet, which is partially located in the floodway, which you can see is blue. And then you have your pink Zone 1 buffer, your green Zone 2 buffer. There is also some large public water, sanitary, and storm sewers that run through the site. It's a 30-inch water, 60-inch sanitary, and 84-inch storm. And those easements that are associated with that are shown in yellow, which is one of the things we've looked at is what do you do if we were to build a new building, and obviously those are some large constraints on what you would be able to improve it with. So I'm gonna, if you can flip to the next sheet, Rebecca, thank you. So here's what we're proposing to do with this site plan. So roughly the big thing is the floodway on the site. So there is an existing building that exists in that southwest corner that we're proposing to remove. Thank you for highlighting that. It basically overhangs the bank of the stream. And so we're also proposing to remove basically the left knuckle of the shopping center, which is also in the floodway and in the pink Zone 1 buffer there. So removal of building within the floodway, and then we're also removing a portion of the building in the center of the site on the north, which would allow us to, and we can look at the stormwater plan in a minute, but removal of buildings is removal of obstructions in the floodplain, but then also we would reroute that 84-inch box culvert through the two buildings so it's no longer sitting under slab and accessible for maintenance. So it's about 27,000 square feet of existing footprint that will be removed. We plan to raise the finished floors. Right now, they are not compliant with the base flood elevations, so we've taken the HEC-RAS models, we've modeled them, and we will be raising those finished floors. The way to do this without raising the entire site is we're also going to raise all the sidewalks around the building, and you'll enter the building through steps or ramps, and that'll allow us to keep the parking lot low. We will also adjust the parking lot as needed to balance the floodplain across the site, because the entire site does sit in floodplain. For additional mitigation, we talked about, or I guess if you don't mind flipping to the next exhibit, this is probably a little cleaner. On the left side, you can see the buildings that we're moving from the floodway. There's also asphalt and parking that goes all the way up to the top of that bank there, which is a retaining wall. We're planning, if you look on the right side of the sheet, we're planning to come back in and take out a majority of that pavement along the left side and plant it as a mitigation buffer, which has been provided in this set as well. So across the site, we're adding roughly 0.7 acres of pervious space, which is roughly 10% of the site. So and a majority of that is on the left, which we are going to heavily plant as a riparian buffer. An LID waiver has been granted for the site already, so we will be treating everything that we're disturbing, which is a majority of the site, through water quality units, which we've been meeting with Metro Water Services on best ways to do that and satisfy their requirements. And overall, I believe that is it for all the improvements. The alternative buffer signage locations is basically for the same reason as the last meeting. If we were to place them at the edge of the buffers, it would be in the middle of the parking lot and wouldn't make sense. So we're planning to move those back to the green space where we're planting. If you don't mind flipping a couple more sheets. There you go. There's the buffer planting along the west. You can also see we're adding green spaces throughout the parking lot. The alternative signage, we were proposing the standard buffer signage, but there was discussions with educational signage when we had these preliminary meetings, and we're open to that as well. So unless ownership has anything else, we're happy to take questions and discuss the site further.
You have 4 minutes left. Anything else you want to? Okay. Okay. All right. With that, I'll close the applicant's presentation. Anybody here to speak in favor or against, please raise your hand. Yes, please. I'll ask if you would state your name, address, and I'll give you 2 minutes.
I'm Brian Metzger. I live at 328 54th Avenue, right on the other side of Charlotte. My wife, Simone Metzger, had some stuff to say. She's on work travel this week. She asked me to read exactly as she has written this, and then I'll try my best. She is more knowledgeable than me on these matters. She says she's concerned that the proposed construction will impact the floodway widths and elevations south of the site across Charlotte Avenue. Changes to the topography, such as raising grade to bring some of the buildings up and out of the floodplain, increase obstruction to floodplain conveyance. This would affect the floodway delineations to the south. Hydraulic structures do not control. Please demonstrate that the volume calculations and modeling, which should have been performed to meet no-rise conditions, show no adverse impacts to the floodplain and floodway elevations upstream of the site. It's my understanding that the primary way to demonstrate this would be to update the effective FEMA model to incorporate the proposed site changes in comparing floodway and floodplain elevations using the HECRAS model, which can be obtained from FEMA. And we've got some emails that have gone back and forth. She has been asking for the analysis that shows the changes to the floodway. We're basically, it's right on us right now. If you look at the area of the map south of 54th, we're more or less right on the line. And what she has explained to me very patiently is that while the analysis that we've been shown is that we are both adding and subtracting height in different places on the site to make sure that we're keeping the required volume for the water to go in. What we're asking for is an analysis of the effects that will have outside of the site. We've got pictures of standing water that develops back in a little green space behind those townhouses when we get a lot of rain. We're, again, right on the bubble of being a flood risk right now, and this could have big impacts on our property value.
Great. Thank you for that. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I guess we're just waiting to see if, again, we've gone through a few cycles of requesting information that shows an analysis outside the property. And once or twice we've been sent documentation that says, yes, here's the analysis. And we read through it, and it only refers to things on the property.
Okay. All right. Those are great comments. Thank you, Ms. Metzger, as well, for putting together a thoughtful approach and the great delivery by your husband.
Thank you.
If you're watching. Okay. All right. I'll close your statement. Anybody else here to speak in favor or against? All right. With that, Logan, any other letters? I know we did receive Ms. Metzger's letter prior to the meeting. We did read that. Anything else?
Yeah, that's the only one we received, was just that letter.
Okay. All right. I'll close public hearing and open it up for discussion. It's nice to see another, well, this one's not a preliminary, but another existing conditions case that attempts to make the conditions better than they currently are. So I appreciate your approach in trying to reduce the impervious and other elements. So I'll kick it off of that. No, it's not. Right? Is that correct? It's not a preliminary. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I might. Rebecca, could you go back to the ArcGIS that you just had up? Just a brief historical note. The property across the creek years ago went through the process. It was a former car dealership that became the Metro West Precinct that did a mitigation project. So I just thought it might be of note to the commission that that nearby project had also entered into that type of project. Maybe Rebecca can do a before and after, but a similar project was done in vicinity.
And also, I guess, before we dive too far into deliberation, I know this area, there was a greenways comment. Ms. Harrison, would you mind coming up and once again or telling us your thoughts of the site and how you've worked with the applicant, or if you have?
This one is a little bit different than the previous in that we have a greenway on the opposite side of the creek here. The Greenways Master Plan does call for a greenway on both sides. And I guess I should be more specific and say we have a greenway trail on the opposite side. Greenways in our conservation easements don't always have trails, but they do seek to conserve the riparian zone. Here, I guess the similarity is we do still have infrastructure and buildings that are planned there. I think in this case, because of the conditions, particularly to the north with the creek and the interstate, pretty difficult to, at this time anyway, to extend that greenway on that side, the applicant's side. But we would at least like to acknowledge a couple of things. Right now, we don't have a connection from the existing greenway to the north of Charlotte to the greenway down at McCabe. At some point, we're probably looking at an at-grade crossing. We don't know exactly where that would be. Logically, it would be at an intersection that would be signalized because of the Charlotte Pike and the traffic. But still, that corner where you're removing that one building could be advantageous to a greenway development and connection to the existing trail that's on the West Precinct side. And also, unless I missed it, I didn't see, and I guess we should have commented on this, but I didn't see a connection a pedestrian connection out to Charlotte to the sidewalk infrastructure that would get people to the trailhead at the West Precinct. So sidewalk infrastructure is there. it might need some improvement, I'm not sure, but just internally from your building, I think that would be advantageous to you all as well as to the system to think about making a connection there.
Very helpful. If you don't mind pressing your mic, yeah.
All right, I didn't want to speak out of turn, but yes, if we flip back to the proposed one, there is a sidewalk that we're proposing from the building out to the Charlotte Pike right away, and we are proposing to improve the Charlotte Pike sidewalks as well.
Okay. I guess we would, as you move through, would welcome the opportunity to just kind of talk about what that might look like and what might be helpful there as you're doing your planting mitigation and just making space for something so that that would enhance that connection.
Yeah, happy to continue those conversations.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Harrison.
Thank you.
Can you go back and summarize for us quickly what buildings you're removing, the impervious that you're removing, and give us that? Yeah.
Yeah, so if you can see this exhibit, and I apologize, I should have made the colors a little bolder, but there's a southwest corner building that overhangs. Perfect, thank you. It sits at the top of a retaining wall which overhangs the creek, and then if you just head just north of that, everything in red is a building that we're proposing to remove, and we'll replace it with a drive. So basically, we're taking the drive that's to the west of it and pulling it where the footprint of the building is today so that we can continue to get trucks to the back of house for functionality purposes. But where the drive is today, west of it, will become green space. And then in the center of the building, there's a large chunk. If you're looking at the it's a continuous building east to west. We're taking that chunk out, if you look at the right, adding parking back, but that allows us to reset that box culvert between the two buildings as well. Is that
It's helpful.
clear
Thank
now?
you. Yeah, you're removing a section of the building in between it. Okay.
Correct.
Great.
It'll create it's one building today, it'll create two when we do that.
Are we open for questioning now?
Yes.
Okay. Looking at this, I see that you have existing impervious and then the proposed impervious. Is that for the entire site?
That's for the entire 7 acres.
Do you have a calculation as it relates to the changes in the floodway and the Zone 1, Zone 2 buffers?
I do not have that exact number, but the landscape plan does have a separate, a number for sod and then a number for restoration buffer. So everything along the east side that's within the floodway is roughly 18,600 square feet. So that's pavement to green space, restoration buffer.
I may have missed this, but the floodplain is the entire site, did you say, is in the floodplain?
Mm-hmm. There's a small portion that's in the 500 year, but it's out in the parking lot. Or I think it's one of the buildings. But yes, if we turn the GIS on, it's the entire site.
It would be helpful to see that.
Yeah, so the building shows up as 500 year, but everything outside the building is 100.
Are you going a foot above current floodplain? Or is it?
We've taken, so the model, the HECRAS model shows the base flood elevation falling across our site. So we've taken that model and we'll go a foot above it where it's touching the buildings.
So you're raising the finished floor inside the building, and then the only part outside the walls that you're raising is the kind of pedestrian connectivity, but you said you're compensating for that through the grading of the parking lot?
Yes, we can flip back to the grading plan, but yes, so all the sidewalks will be raised and, perfect, thank you. So all the sidewalks around the building will be raised, and we'll have a series of steps and ramps for ADA purposes to enter basically a raised platform where you can walk around the building. But then the parking lot, you can see right there in the center, we're gonna have to dig up that parking lot and lower it a tad to help offset that fill. Building D, which is a standalone building, has a need to have flush access, so that's the only area where sidewalk will be flush with pavement. And so part of losing that building in the middle was, allowing us to lower the elevation of that pavement, because I don't really want to mess with lowering the pavement over those 60 and 30-inch water and sanitary lines.
I have a landscape question too. Possibly you can answer. If you go to the planting plan, so the largest section of buffer that you show planted there is the two kind of more understory trees, one being the Japanese cherry. Is there any reason why we didn't do more variety in there, or have more mix of more of the canopy trees, or some more diversity kind of within there?
So the understory trees was utilized because there is overhead power lines that feed the back of that building. That's how they get the power to the site. The bank is also a retaining wall, and so we're trying to limit planting the larger canopy trees. But we can definitely look at more variety.
I think it's always, creates a more resilient landscape, especially for something that we're going to kind of let naturalize when we've got more variety of species in there, and then thinking about what the tangent benefits are ecologically and just resiliently, with things that come through and affect trees often. And so I think it would be good to have more variety than those two species, and always like to encourage that we try to do more native species where we can, as opposed to something like a Japanese cherry, for example, that's in there. I appreciate the dogwood, but I understand the complexity of it, because it's also hard to always choose natives because of the things that affect those, especially like the native dogwood right now. So I think some variety would be good to have in there, and appreciate the power lines, but as much as we can get in there that kind of just enhances that, I think. Improves that.
Flowing water.
It's more about, I think, the way in which they're planted rather than the species, because I assume in this condition, it's probably more of a temporary, quick kind of comes up and goes back down. I do think it's a good point of thinking about what those species are just from their proximity to the riparian edge. But I think for sure, making sure that it's planted and stabilized in a way that is not going to erode or take those away, especially with your seed mix. I don't know what your strategy is for putting that in, but I assume you've got one that's appropriate for dealing with proximity and being that close to the creek.
Yeah, they call out roundstone seed mix for riparian right now, but
Yeah,
I'm not in
Roundstone's
LA,
the
so.
supplier, but I think thinking about, how that's going in and what we're doing to make sure it's going to established and be stabilized. There's some different ones out there that are really effective at these stream banks. And also, I don't know how this really gets approached, and I'm sure it's part of the review that comes from Metro Water, but ensuring that that is done at a time of year that we get the effects of it. More detail, I think, it's helpful sometimes whenever we get into these kind of conditions.
Logan, you're doing a great job, by the way. Question, there's a lot of information. So you mentioned, can you talk a little bit about the no-rise on the site and also address some of the comments about off-site impacts, and has that been looked at, or is there an opportunity to look at that in the HEC-RISE model?
So I mean, there is an opportunity to look at it. We have not produced a no-rise yet.
Would you mind pressing your button?
It's
Or
sorry,
speaking
I'll
closer
speed
to
up.
it, there you go.
So we have not produced a no-rise yet. We're just balancing floodplain volume across the site right now. And so if that is something that the board wishes, we can produce that with our permit set.
If I'm not mistaken, that is something as a commission that we have to find, that there is a no rise when you are in the floodway. Unless somebody I can pull out the rules, but, I mean, I think that would be very helpful for me to see.
Balanced. Wasn't the site balance?
To staff, I know normally if there's anything being put within the floodway, then there is a no rise required. I'm not really familiar about the commission and what it is required to do. I can look it up though. But I do know we require that if there's anything put in the floodway.
What's the current procedure for plan approval or staff comments relative to variance approval? You know, like, do y'all have, are these plans, where are they in review? If this is a final, have they been submitted and reviewed, or?
We've produced an LID waiver, and then this was our next step before we finished construction documents to go in for permit.
We don't have a standard policy. Like, we don't make them get through a certain review threshold before they submit.
So I did pull the rules. The exact language is variance shall not be issued within any designated floodway if any increase in flood levels during the base flood discharge would result. So that is a requirement of us as the commission to make that finding.
So,
In our conversations, I didn't think it was required yet because we weren't improving anything, or I guess we weren't increasing elevations within the floodway. We were just removing the buildings and matching, but happy to.
I would look at Metro Legal as well, but the way I interpret the rule, this is a variance that is being issued within a designated floodway. So it doesn't talk about whether you're adding new structures or not. It's just the variance request itself is the way that I read the rule.
I see Mr. Mishu here stepping up. Maybe he can provide some more color.
Did that work? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner, Chair, and Commission members. Steve Mishu, Development Services. I will say that no rise will be part of our review. We will ensure that they're balancing any cut and fill, and that we will ensure that all the regulations will be met in that. If during the review, during the plan review, that we find that they are creating a rise or they have uncompensated fill, we will absolutely send them back to the commission. So that is something in our purview that we would review, and we would send it to the commission if it didn't meet it. Kind of like the previous one, it was a preliminary. We had, I know I'm not really supposed to talk about it without them here, but we had these discussions, and we suggested that they come as a preliminary just because there's a lot more involvement in that. But that's something within our purview. We'll be happy to look at that during our review. And if you wanted us to report back, we could. If you want to do something special just because there's a constituents requesting, it's not tradition that we would necessarily defer and say, you do the no rise, and then if it doesn't, then you come back. You could be assured that we will review it during our review. If something doesn't come back correctly, then we won't approve it, and it'll be back at the commission members.
And so ultimately, if we did vote, we could make that a condition as well as a part of it. And obviously, if there was a rise, then they did not meet the conditions of the variance, and then would have to come back with a new plan, is the way that I would see that. Just for the commission, there is another section of our rules that's for condition for variances under 4B, subpart 3, that just says a determination that the granting of a variance will not result in increased flood heights, additional threats to public safety, or extraordinary public expense is another factor that we look at. But I understand what you're saying. It sounds like that could be a condition, and then obviously if there was a finding, they would be back in front of us.
You could absolutely make it a condition, or if you don't make a condition, it's still part of the review that we would do on a daily basis.
I mean, if they're not asking for uncompensated fill, there won't be a rise. You're not removing floodplain.
Okay. Okay with that?
Well, going back to the landscape mitigation for a minute, can you go back to the, was there a slide that showed the pre and post where it was the removal? Just looking at some of the existing site and how narrow it is back there, and how the drive is immediately adjacent to a retaining wall that I assume drops down. I don't know what the grades are there. I guess I'm just curious, where do these plantings end up, and how feasible is it to do them? Where do they end up vertically? You're creating some space horizontally, so how does the wall that's there, I guess, get changed? And just trying to understand how
So
the
wall-
plantings work.
The wall would remain, and there's an asphalt drive up there today, and we'll be removing that and restoring it and then replanting it.
So the plantings are on the high side of the wall then?
Correct. Mhm.
Got it. So they're really not riparian, they're really just,
For
I
the
mean,
stream-
they're
for the-
within
I mean, the
the-
bank doesn't exist because it's a retaining wall. So,
Right.
Yes, it is still a buffer planting. Water will run off of it into the stream.
I think that does change your approach there, because it's how much higher is it than the stream?
I don't have that number. It does disappear as you go north.
Okay. Yeah, same comments on diversity and approach and those sort of things I think are still good, but I think looking at how it relates vertically, even though it's horizontally close to the stream, planting a riparian seed mix next to the asphalt may not be the most effective strategy to have a rich landscape buffer there. So I would encourage you to look at that as you make your final plans.
Yes, sir.
That comment about final plans kind of brings up a point. I mean, I feel like the plans aren't done, and we don't really know what we're kind of voting in general on some parking staying in the floodway, but there's still just a lot of detail and information to work out. I don't know if we're there yet. I don't know if anybody else agrees or disagrees, but it seems like there's more of a preliminary.
I guess,
nature.
what information do you believe is missing right now?
Well, everything that Nathan just talked about, just what are the extents? I mean, there's still some buildings staying in the floodway, but I mean, you show some storm network pipes through there, but are you able to meet, I know you got a waiver, but are you able to meet all the regulations? You know, where you're putting water quality units in floodway, I don't know if that's allowed or not allowed.
We had a meeting we've had pre-apps with Metro Water post-submission of this to go over our thought process of how everything, and so the water quality units will be pulled out of the floodway was one of the comments.
But the plans in front of us show it, and that's what we have to vote on. And so I don't know what procedurally, how we're hamstrung there.
Maybe we need to have the final plans unless we feel like we can make conditions that are very clear for Metro to come back and, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of our practice that unless it's a minor change, you need to come back. So something like that probably would not be a minor change.
Yeah, that's, like, there's no design sheets in the package. And so I don't know, that's why it seems preliminary in nature.
Backwards, I feel like green is go, you know? It's like, very like, what's going on? I feel like the struggle I've seen is, you know, it's like, where do you pay all this money for design and then you come here and you're like, no, and then you go back, so you're kind of in this circular motion. And even from my point of view, not understanding, I think having guidelines of specific information, and maybe we do, of exactly what needs to be shown at what level, because I get what you're saying, this is lacking some information, but I do think understanding what that is outside of, are you just going in circles, or is the preliminary required? I just feel like giving more input so people aren't doing this and, you know, spending money on full-blown design that's going to get shot down. Does that make sense?
It does. I think I'd go back to what the variance request asks for. So if I read those three components that we're here to talk about and vote on, number one is buffer zone 1 and 2 encroachments to allow portions of the existing building to remain, as well as parking. And so in that, I see where they've acknowledged existing buildings are within portions of the floodway and the buffers, and they're removing one building completely. They're removing a section, a small section of another one, and then a larger section in between the northern, or I guess that's that's the northern side, to help compensate for that. Number two, allow maintenance of new mitigation landscape buffer that we've been talking about to be planted within the floodway or zone one. Nathan's given some comments on that, and I think Mr. Fulmer's, made a good point of making sure that those are able to withstand a flood event in that floodway. And then three, the more easy ones that we deal with is alternate buffer sign location to be located at the edge of the new proposed green space. So I guess I'd ask the commissioners if we have, let's take these one by one. Are there any other questions that we have to the applicant related to the first one, the buffer encroachment to allow the existing building to remain as well as portions of the parking?
I mean, I have comments to that. I'm not inclined to leave as much parking as we have in the current proposed plan. I think more of the parking could be removed, personally. It's in the floodway. This is an opportunity to remove.
And kind of on top of that, where's your waste management?
There's two components of it. The first one, if you're looking at the new building, there's dumpster collection here for the western building, and then the standalone building will have its own right here in the rear.
Okay. So you moved all that out from back around
Yes.
floodway buffers. Great.
So, I'm sorry, all of your garbage, so all of these retailers are gonna be walking over there? It's not gonna be behind? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what we had proposed, yes.
And to Ms. Simpson's statement about the parking, can you tell us again the the impervious versus pervious that you're proposing to change, whether it's within the floodway? Give us that. How much are you moving within the floodway?
There was roughly it was roughly 18,600 square feet of current asphalt today being converted to green space.
That's in the floodway only?
In the floodway. There's more throughout the site. And so the goal was to pull that asphalt away from the stream. And we have to maintain access to the back of the building for functionality, so we removed a portion of the building so that we could have a drive back there.
And then added the parking.
And I appreciate that, that we have removed some. For me, maintaining some of that back parking that doesn't, I understand there probably needs to be entrance to the back, but having parking there in a floodway, I just don't see a hardship for that or a need. It may reduce parking and it may be uncomfortable, but, I mean, I feel like I've been very clear about some of my thoughts of keeping things in floodways when there's not really a necessity or a hardship associated with that.
Would you be open to doing pervious parking back there? So if we did green or gravel within the floodway?
I think it's hard to understand back to kind of where we were a minute ago. I see your proposed contours on there, but there's no contours for the stream itself or what's on the low side of that wall. So it's kind of hard to look at the landscape mitigation plan. I think it's a little hard to look at the kind of how things flow and work without understanding where they tie in and the height of that wall. Because like we said earlier today, having those pervious pavers and those sorts of things in the floodway is not typical, just because of their, the effects of it aren't quite as high. And so I think it kind of goes back to the plans having more information would be better to understand kind of what's being proposed and how it's actually working, because we see it in 2D and read plans every day, but understanding how it actually relates. Also, if you're putting all that water to that green space and the retaining wall stays there, you know, I don't know what the strategy is of how that's managed. And if the retaining wall is staying in place and how much is being removed to have those plantings actually, and that riparian buffer actually function as that. I'm assuming it's probably a lot of backfill behind that wall that's probably not very conducive to landscape buffer.
So
No.
I was just gonna, well, it changed. I was gonna point, the wall doesn't take up the whole back half of it. But yes, we're not sending all of our rainwater there. A lot of it will be collected and routed through water quality units for treatment.
But everything falling behind the building looks like it will.
There's a grading plan that shows a storm line back there that would catch it before it, most of it before it exits the parking area.
To the water quality unit that's in the buffer.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're gonna pull it. It'll be in the buffer. We'll move it out of the floodway based on. And then there's also the request to put duckbill valves on those so that water doesn't come back into the water quality units, you know, rendering them useless.
Are there restaurants in the program?
Today there are, and there are proposed, yes.
And I guess to the point earlier, Jay is a much better engineer than I. Are there specific things, because you know, that we may need to see on the actual plans? I think the contours is helpful. Still being the newbie on the commission, we talked about waste management. Has that come up before in discussions? And I guess
I think that'll work,
Curious.
that'll work through at a staff level. You know, I want to try to focus on what they're asking for here
Yeah.
with keeping, you know, some of the buildings within the.
Yeah, that's why I was a little
buffers
confused.
and-
You know, I think as it relates to how much pavement is needed, right, or improved, but what is lacking, I guess, on the plans? I'm trying to give guidance, whether or not those changes, if we can quantify that in some way. I know it can't be, we're not the designer, but I think giving that feedback might be helpful. Specific,
yeah.
like specifically like the contour data, I'm not sure. And/or, because I think that obviously we've had somebody come that is to the south of here, being able to address impacts to the south, having information enough to see that, provide that comment. The water quality units are shown right now in the buffer. I think obviously those need to be taken out. Is that handled at staff level?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would just be a condition, or that would be really for staff to handle?
Correct, just
Okay.
as the no-rise would. That
Okay.
was the concern of
I just wanna be
the
clear.
neighbor upstream.
Okay.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, I'd, you know, like the last case, I'm always trying to find ways on these types of cases to make an improvement to the existing site. We're not talking about a new development, we're not talking about new pavements, we're talking about removing pavements, we're talking about removing sections of the building that are within the buffer and the floodway. You know, so out of the 3 requests, you know, the first one we've been spending a lot of time on, are there any issues with the maintenance within the buffer? Or the signage? Those are the 2 and 3, maintenance and signage. We didn't really talk about signage yet, but.
I didn't know if the signage may actually be more beneficial towards the sidewalk instead of tucked in the back where the parking is right now. Not sure. I just don't know if we're gonna do, I think that they're open to educational signage, and probably having it accessible to where more people may see it could be beneficial. I see it kind of tucked behind Building A right now, if I'm reading it correctly. But don't know how my other commissioners feel about that.
It's such a back of house space, you know, I don't know how much really traffic it's gonna get from an educational standpoint. If the Greenway Trail was on this side of the bank, I'd agree, but,
So where I'm proposing.
you're right.
I'm proposing right there towards the sidewalk where people would actually see it and would actually have accessibility to the greenway.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if they're maintaining the buffer, then there's no reason to put a sign there too. It's primarily meant to identify, don't touch it.
Right. Fair, yeah, yeah. You have any issue with that?
Educational signage down at the southwest corner?
Yeah.
I mean, Greenway's talked about wanting to look at that area and try to make it part of that trailhead, and so, yeah, that would make sense where it would go.
Okay.
So would you end up with educational signage there and then the standard buffer sign, kind of where they have it shown now?
They're asking us to, maintain the buffer, so the buffer signage, in a sense, is there to signify this as a buffer, and it's a no-mow zone, right?
What does maintenance
Yeah,
include?
They'll have to maintain the trees and plantings in that area, I figure.
But is that a variance to allow maintenance of the new mitigation landscape buffer? That would be normal?
It's supposed to grow wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's why I'm trying to, I guess I'm trying to understand what's, you want to keep them trimmed and tidy and.
I mean, it is as you look for the west and the front of the site, I mean, it is a commercial space and there's going to be storefronts fronting that. So yes, I mean, keeping it trimmed back and tidied up, specifically in that area.
Yeah, I think in my mind, that kind of goes against what you're asking for from a mitigation standpoint and how effective it is as mitigation. I think it's also, we're talking about missing information. I think sections would be really helpful to understand the grades we've talked about. And I think understanding too, if that's being removed, pavement, what's going back in terms of depths and how is it actually going to be that riparian buffer that you're proposing it to be. I don't see any details in the package that kind of describes that kind of unique condition.
Yeah, I mean, the goal there is, it's not a true riparian stream buffer. I think we both agree on that. But I mean, the goal there was to reduce the pavement that's up against the edge of the stream and replace it with green space and plants that reduce runoff.
Yes, and I understand what the goal is. I don't know that we have enough information to say that it looks like that is meeting that goal, I guess is what we're saying. I also think the maintenance of it creates, I think it's far into the floodway, and I think we would normally say that we're trying to leave those undisturbed as much as we can for the benefits of it.
Mr. Lewis, do you have any thoughts on this one? Okay. I'm trying to get you towards a motion. I feel like, in my mind, I don't have an issue with the signage, except for don't place the do not disturb signage where you're going to be maintaining the landscaping. So personally, I have no issue with items 2 and 3. It's just it's the first one that we're sticking on that I think has a greater impact.
Can some of the parking that you proposed in the buffer be further reduced per Ms. Simpson's question earlier?
Yeah, I can speak to that if y'all can hear me.
Press it again.
That any better?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Great.
it's your
Third
voice,
time's a
not the
charm.
mic.
Okay, here we go. So I understand the concern in the comments about what can and can't be in the floodway. Parking is, as y'all know, with retail, is essential. One aspect here is that going in Building D on the site plan is a grocery store which is really driving the train on our ability to do all the site work that we're talking about, which we would basically never contemplate with in a renovation like this. So if there is a significant reduction in parking off here, it would endanger the entire enterprise. And I realize that's a me problem, but it may not meet the definition of a hardship that you typically see, but it would endanger the project.
Is there any change of use here on this site? Same use? All right. So technically, you could renovate, well, no. You could leave the buildings as they are. Let me think about that. Yeah, I mean, you could keep everything the way it is today and lease out the space. But what we want to do is try to improve that site.
If it's not change of owner or change of use, does it trigger significant redevelopment?
Yeah, over a certain amount, which is fairly low since it's based on the assessment.
But not only if you change ownership or change use. If they're not doing that, then the amount is ignored.
For water quality, possibly, yeah. Not for floodplain or buffer disturbances.
Okay. This existing building.
But I mean, they could just not touch the buffer and just leave it all there.
Right.
Right, but I guess you would have to modify the finished floor.
Yeah.
But to do that, wouldn't you be making a change
I mean, they're still
In the-
removing the building.
if you modify, unless you're
Yeah,
kind of.
if it's a change in use or change in
Mr.
ownership, it requires.
Ms. Donna, I see you,
kicking in.
you might have some.
It's kicking in a grading permit, which kicks in the buffer. So whether or not it's significant redevelopment,
But
the
it's-
buffer will be kicked in. If they do anything, if they leave it as is, it's not kicked in.
Right. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is, on these cases, I'm all for trying to make these sites better for the watershed and better for the neighbors and improve stormwater quality and quantity. The applicant could just lease out the space as it currently sits right now. And we would be left with a site that doesn't perform the way that it is being proposed to perform. And so I just also like to share the other side of the coin and maybe fly up to 30,000 feet and look down at what we're dealing with here. Richland Creek is a sensitive creek, just like Mill Creek was. Trekking centers are a problem for stormwater runoff. They're full of impervious surfaces. Shopping centers are a problem for stormwater. This is an old shopping center that has poor stormwater management practices. I think the applicant has done a decent job of proposing what they're trying to do and asking us if what they're showing to remove out of the floodway, remove out of the floodplain is acceptable. The finer details of the plantings and those pieces, I think from a staff level and the no rise from a staff level are things that are handled in that manner. So I'm providing this as a comment, not as a direction, but I'd encourage commissioners to look at it a little bit that way as well.
I would agree with your assessment and agree that removing portions of the building and portions of the paving and improving the site are what we want to see in these redevelopments. And I think we want them to perform better. I think it's hard to understand how that performance lasts beyond the images on the plan without having the appropriate detail to do that and to say, yes, it really is going to be additive and not just visually appealing for the first little bit that it goes in. So I think that's where I kind of, do look at more of the detail of it to ensure that it is something that it's going to be something that's resilient and additive to all the work and the expense and effort that's going in, because you want that to be something that is you do for your site, but we do for the community and the benefits of Browns Creek for going through, or Richland Creek for going through here. So I do think some of that can be handled at a staff level, but it's just hard for us to look at it without having some of the detail that we've talked through today.
I should note that just across the other side of the creek, they did do a really good restoration when they came through to They took out so much of the parking, they got a building out of there. They put the trail in. I think there's bioretention in some spots. We spent a lot of time photographing the transition of that site through the years, and we do have a slide presentation that we put together on that. But that was really a restoration that they did to try to bring more ecological function to the area.
They were a little more fortunate to have a building that was set back a little farther from the creek in this case as well. So I just, and so in this case, the applicant is proposing to remove portions, like remove square footage, remove leasable square footage from the building to help offset portions of the building that are within the buffers. So I'm just taking that as an appreciation, is all. Especially removing the building that it's hanging over the creek, that technically could be left over the floodway. So there's expense there. They're making a good effort to improve the condition of the site. Was anything from staff? And this is not a preliminary, so we're gonna have to vote on this. I'm trying to lay everything out here, unless the applicant would like to defer for any reason from what they're hearing.
I think what these are, I mean, we're getting more challenging cases because of the redevelopment that's happening, and I think they take creative solutions. I think this is more creative than some of the things we've seen, and I think part of the request for detail that we've had today is just a result of the challenging sites and cases that are happening within the county, and needing to take a little bit different approach than traditionally that we have on some of these, and I think that's what we're seeing more of, and how we are getting the info that we need to be able to evaluate it. I do think there's an effort to do the right thing and improve it from a high level.
If I may, just discussing a deferral. I mean, I'm open to talking through that if we can kind of get specific on what we can do to better improve our case. What I'm hearing from Commissioner Oliver is there's significant detail in a landscaping plan to make sure that this buffer is a buffer and what the contours are. I think I'm open. I think we feel like we can do that. And if that relieves some of the tension of a vote today versus a little bit more time for detail, I think we can do that. Anything else, if we're trying to get more specific on plans before we would come back? Is there anything else that is top of mind?
I definitely understand the need for parking, so I think if you do defer, just taking a look at that one more time to see if there's any possibility of, I think that, because that has been asked again in a deferral, but I completely understand the need for parking for these uses.
Is there an existing attitude on pervious or gravel or grass pavers or something like that would make a difference to the commission?
I defer to staff of whether or not, since it's in the floodplain, that's something that would be helpful. Since we just talked about it in the last case.
Yes. Oh, it's not me, it's you.
It would again go back to what was the site built on initially, first and foremost, what was the field that was built upon? And then if it was in an area that would not be consistent with our regs as far as placement, i.e. in the floodplain, that would have to be part of the variance request as well. One note I will make, and we've seen it on Richland in another area, and I'm sure you know this, but contemplate that any mitigation in the floodway is going to undergo significant rigors during flood events. So the staking of trees, that's going to be very important. But just thinking about how even a no disturb area is going to be impacted by periodic floodway waters, and the velocities and those sorts of things play into it as well.
Rebecca, would a grading permit be required if they just demoed the portions of these buildings that they're proposing to demo? Or is that just a demo permit, or is it because it's a?
10,000 square feet or 100 cubic yards of fill is what kicks in our grading permits.
Right, but if they just demo the building as they've shown,
Well,
they need a
but
building permit?
anything in a
grading
flood,
permit?
anything in a floodplain also kicks in a grading permit.
Okay. Just strictly for demolition, to remove a structure, you have to get a grading permit within a floodplain?
Ask the gentleman next to you.
Oh, sorry.
I think, no, if it's just demolition, I don't think we'd require a grading permit. If they were adding material to the floodplain or changing.
You need to sit closer, Mr. Mishu. You sit in the back corner for some reason.
Yeah, in this case, they're changing topography.
But they're changing the parking lot because they're trying to do mitigation.
No, they're changing the parking lot because of the box culvert.
Thank you, Chairman. If the question is, does a demolition plan trigger a grading permit or not? If it was over 10,000 square foot, but they agreed to leave the slab in place, where it wouldn't be a erosion control issue, we would probably okay this without a grading permit. If they insisted on removing the slab and exposing soil, where it could be an erosion issue, then we would ask for a grading permit with a demolition of the buildings.
It's helpful.
So just so I'm clear, is this is being requested to meet market conditions though as well? Using the existing, I feel like we're going down some paths that using the existing buildings isn't necessarily an option, that's why you're here.
Using the.
No, I'm saying, yeah, that's a question because I feel like they're here making an application for a reason. So trying to go down these rabbit holes to me is getting confusing. And so you've submitted, now maybe some other options, but for the submittal, because I get confused easily, is I think from where I was coming from, if you do look at deferring and addressing some of the landscaping, which may be helpful to get clarity, because I think we're spinning and I'm not sure where the vote will land without doing a straw man. I don't know if that's, I think that any type of pervious that would withstand, obviously being creative and showing some effort, but because eliminating parking is likely not going to be an option for you. So looking at ways to be creative within those would be appreciated if you do defer it from my point of view.
Well, would you like for us to vote or would you like to defer?
Go ahead, we'll defer.
Okay. All right, I'll take a motion for accepting a deference.
Got it. You're already read.
Motion?
We all are.
Seconded?
Motion to defer.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None? Okay, motion carries to defer. See you next month. Okay. Okay.
Question for legal. Is it a majority of members present to carry a vote, or is it, or does it majority of 7, even if we have absence?
We had to ask you a question today, so we're going to press you on the real rules here.
I'm forecasting next month we have 5 people. So,
To remind everyone, I will not be here the next 2 meetings, more likely than, definitely not the next meeting, but it may be 2 meetings that I'm absent.
Yeah, is it simple
and
majority?
so would they need 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 votes?
I'm pretty sure it's the majority of present, but I'll double check that before your next meeting.
Okay. Okay. All right. Logan, was that our last case? That you had removed one, right? So
Yes.
Okay, any other items of business?
No, that case that was removed will be deferred to next month, so we may see them next month and then see this case next month.
Any other cases for next month? Do we have a stacked agenda now that we added two to it?
That's the only two right now. so-
Really?
Back here? Are we back here?
Yeah, I think we'll be here.
Good, well, we needed some more things to talk about next month anyway, so that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, with that, 10:39, not bad. Thank you, everybody. Meeting adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.